Good evening, and welcome to the 67th Annual Grammy Awards. Tonight, we decided we're not just going to be celebrating our favorite music, we're also celebrating the city.
Today, we're diving into a topic that's been a major conversation for years. Why hip-hop hates the Grammys. Now, the Grammys are supposed to be the pinnacle of success in the music industry, right? The place where artists get their flowers, where culture is celebrated, and where the best of the best are recognized. But let's be real, when it comes to hip-hop, the Grammys have had a pretty rocky relationship with the culture. From snubs to misunderstandings and even outright disrespect, we've seen it all. So in this video, I'm going to break down why hip-hop has such a complicated history with the Grammys and why things still aren't perfect. Let's get into it. Now, let's talk about the 2025 Grammys, where hip-hop was definitely in the spotlight but still didn't get the full recognition it deserves. Hip-hop was represented in multiple categories, but the question remains, were we really celebrated for the cultural powerhouse we are? One of the biggest examples of hip-hop getting the short end of the stick at the 2025 Grammys was the snub of Metro Boomin and Future. Both artists dropped massive projects this year. Metro's Heroes and Villains and Future's We Don't Trust You were not only dominating the charts, but were shaping the culture in 2024. Metro's production on Heroes and Villains was a straight-up masterclass, had hit after hit that captured the essence of hip-hop in 2024. Yet, when the Grammy nominations came out, both were left out of the running for Best Rap Album, and it felt like the Academy just wasn't ready to fully embrace the raw impact of these two legends. Instead, the Grammys played it safe, gravitating towards more traditional mainstream nominees rather than giving credit where it was due to the artist to really define the sound of the year. Kendrick's been the face of hip-hop's intellectual and emotional depth, so to see him acknowledged in these categories is good. But we all know he's been a force in the culture for over a decade, and his impact goes way beyond these awards. We can't ignore the crazy success of Not Like Us. The track took home multiple Grammys, including Best Rap Song and Best Rap Performance. The song hit hard with both its powerful lyrics and its cultural relevance, showing how Kendrick continues to lead the way in hip-hop. But here's the catch. While the wins for Not Like Us are huge, it's almost like the Grammy Academy is still playing catch-up with Kendrick's impact. Hip-hop's history with the Grammys hasn't exactly been full of love. In fact, it's been more like a one-sided relationship where hip-hop's the one doing all the work and the Grammys just aren't giving the credit it deserves. Let's go back to the early days, when hip-hop was still considered a fad. The Grammys didn't really show love to the culture at all. They didn't even acknowledge hip-hop as a genre until 1989. And even then, the Grammy for Best Rap Performance was given to DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, for parents just don't understand. Now, don't get me wrong, that track was iconic, but if you look back at that era, there were plenty of other rappers who deserved recognition too, like KRS-One or Rakim, but the Grammys wasn't checking for them. Fast forward to the 90s and early 2000s, and things still weren't much better. Nas, one of the greatest lyricists ever, went years without even getting a nod for his albums. Illmatic, which many consider the best hip-hop album of all time, didn't even get nominated for a Grammy when it dropped in 1994. But then it gets worse. Nas had to wait until 2021 to win his first Grammy, 27 years later. That's insane. It's almost like the Grammys were saying, yeah, we see you, but you're not good enough to win our award, even though your albums are constantly at the top of the best of all time lists. That's just disrespectful to someone who's put in that much work. Then in 2020, we got the infamous snub of The Weeknd. Now, let's be real. Blinding Lights was everywhere. It was a smash hit, it broke records, stayed at the top of the charts for weeks, and had people singing it in clubs and the radio everywhere. But when Grammy nominations dropped, 0 nominations. Not a single one. And fans were pissed. Some even said that The Weeknd didn't get nominated because he refused to perform at the Grammys. It just doesn't make sense. You had one of the biggest artists in the world at the time, and the Grammys just turned a blind eye. I mean, how do you justify that? So, why does this happen again and again? Why does it feel like hip-hop gets left out while other genres seem to get all the love? Well, it all boils down to a few things: institutionalized biases, and a lack of representation, and a lot of outdated thinking. Let's start with the voting system. The Grammys voting committee is made up of people who are supposed to represent the best in music, but here's the problem. A lot of the people who are voting on hip-hop albums don't even understand the culture. You have people who might listen to country music or pop but have little to no idea of what's going on in the hip-hop world. So when it's time to hand out the awards, hip-hop albums might get overlooked because they don't fit the traditional norms or styles these voters are used to. Artists like Kendrick Lamar, Jay-Z, and Eminem have spoken out about this. Kendrick in particular has been very vocal about how the Grammys treat hip-hop. He said that hip-hop's influence is huge, but for some reason it still gets stuck in these narrow categories, and it's only when an album can fit into the mainstream mold that it gets the recognition it deserves. We've seen Kendrick perform some of the most electrifying, socially conscious performances at the Grammys, and then the Academy still won't hand him the biggest award. And then there's Jay-Z. This man's been one of the most influential figures in music and culture for decades, but when he got his first Grammy in 1999 for Hard Knock Life, he was already a superstar, and it was still like the Grammys were playing catch-up. Jay's still pushing for the recognition hip-hop deserves, even though he's clearly changed the landscape of music. And when you look at how many albums he's dropped that have been revolutionary, it's wild that some of the most iconic works of his didn't get the love they deserved at the Grammys. There's Eminem, who's had his own long-running issues with the Grammys. Despite being one of the greatest rappers of all time, M has never shied away from his frustration with the award show. He's been very vocal about feeling underappreciated by the Grammy Academy, especially when he was snubbed for Album of the Year for the Marshall Mathers LP in 2001. In fact, he's even said that the Grammys don't get him and that he doesn't care about their approval. The most iconic moment was in 2011 when M won Best Rap Album for Recovery, but he didn't even show up to accept the award. He's made it clear that the Grammys often feel out of touch with hip-hop culture, focusing more on commercial success than real artistic impact. Despite all the sales and critical acclaim, it's like M's always had to prove himself to the Grammys, and for an artist of his stature, that's a slap in the face. So, where do we go from here? Is change actually possible? The good news is that hip-hop artists are fighting back. Hip-hop's always been about self-expression and breaking barriers, and now it's pushing the same energy into the Grammys' face. J. Cole, Cardi B, Tyler, the Creator, they've all spoken out about the Grammys' narrow view of hip-hop, and they are demanding more representation. Tyler, the Creator, especially has been very outspoken about how the Grammys have tried to pigeonhole hip-hop. In 2020, after winning the Grammy for Best Rap Album, Tyler made it clear that hip-hop shouldn't be confined to one category. Hip-hop has shaped pop culture, and it deserves recognition in a broader sense. And even artists like Drake have used their platforms to bring attention to how the Grammy system needs to change. When Drake won Best Rap Song in 2019 for God's Plan, he used his acceptance speech to remind the world that, at the end of the day, the charts and the fans are what matter the most, not the Grammys. Drake's message was clear. Hip-hop has its own standards of success, and it doesn't need validation from an outdated institution like the Grammys. At the end of the day, hip-hop's relationship with the Grammys is a complicated one. We've seen moments of recognition, but also long stretches of disrespect. The culture continues to grow, dominate, and influence everything from fashion to politics to entertainment and beyond. But will the Grammys ever truly recognize hip-hop for the powerhouse it is? That's the million-dollar question. But one thing's for sure, hip-hop's never going to stop. It's too big, it's too powerful, and too important. What do you think? Will the Grammys ever get it right? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe for more content right here on Off the Grid Hip Hop.